Shalom. First and foremost, I'd like to give all praise to Yahweh, Ba'Hashem, Yahweh Shai, Ba'Hashem, Rakakadash, double honors, the elders and apostles of Great Millstone, where I teach this truth with sincerity, and shout out to Yakims out there on the four quarters of the earth proclaiming this truth. Bracha the Yahweh, Bracha the Yahweh Shai, Ba'Hashem, Rakakadash, Brakatum. So, as Chump said earlier when, he pushed ISIS, and the removal of so-called illegals, right? He said and created these false flags between him and the Israelis, Mossad, right? To cause internal problems. He said, these places are on fire. We got to send in National Guard. Remember that? It's on fire. Well, guess what? His fire has spread all across West Asia, as this video goes into, pretty much, though. And they're calling for the removal of Donald Trump, man. It ain't going to happen, because Most High has him there for his purpose. But they're, he's getting nervous as more and more people are calling in for his removal from office. But ain't no impeachment going to happen, and they tried to do that the first term, right? It doesn't matter. With the NDAA, the Israeli state runs America officially, so it ain't going to do any good, And even if they did remove him, they'll just have somebody else, kind of like King Bibi. If he loses, guess what? They got this Bennett guy who's even more fucking nuts, man. The Most High's got these people in place for his purpose, and that is for the return of Yahweh Shai HaMashiach, which we are watching for. So, without further ado, gonna get into this. This is from South Front.
A new confrontation between the United States and Iran has begun, and fire is quickly spreading across the Middle East. The escalation began on July 27th when Jordan police reported the interception of 2 drones over the western province of Tarak. Later on the same day, Saudi Arabia reported a drone attack on an Abqaiq oil processing facility in the eastern province. The attack caused significant damage. The Houthis in Yemen claimed responsibility, but the kingdom said the attack originated from Iraq, blaming Iran-backed armed factions there. The next day, July 28th, Saudi Arabia reported a new drone attack against oil facilities in the eastern province. The kingdom again held Iraqi factions responsible, vowing to respond. Later that day, Iran resumed attacks against U.S. forces in the region, launching a salvo of missiles at Rafah Salti Air Base in Jordan. The Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps said the next day that its aerospace forces targeted the headquarters of the Central Command there. CENTCOM later claimed that all missiles were intercepted, but impacts were reported. Early on July 29th, U.S. and Saudi Arabia launched a wave of strikes against Iran-backed armed factions in Iraq. The strikes hit the provinces of Baghdad, Wasit, Niniva, Basra, Kirkuk, Karbala, and Diyala. CENTCOM said that the strikes hit logistics and weapons sites across eastern Iraq. At least 20 people were killed, and later reports revealed that 5 Iranian advisors from the IRGC were among those killed. Later on the same day, the drone attack targeted a liquid natural gas terminal at Damietta port on Egypt's northern coast. The drone hit the floating storage tanker Energos Winter, causing a fire that then spread to another vessel, Gaslog Salem. The tanker is owned by the U.S. No side claimed responsibility, but Iran and its allies were unofficially blamed. Overnight into July 30th, the U.S. resumed strikes against Iran. Strikes hit Qasem Island, Bandar Abbas, and Sidik in the southern Hormozgan province, Bushehr in the southwestern province of the same name, Avaz, Abadan, Shadgan, and Arvan Kena in southwestern Khuzestan province, and an area near Piran Shah in the northwestern province of West Azerbaijan. CENTCOM later said that dozens of IRGC targets were hit, including military command centers, missile and drone facilities, coastal surveillance and defense sites, and maritime capabilities. The Corps, for its part, vowed to respond. All recent developments mark the start of another confrontation between the U.S. and Iran, one with broader regional impact than the previous round of fighting. With no progress in indirect talks between the two sides, the long war could resume soon.
So there you have it there. But there's more.
Trump claims that a deal has been reached to disarm Hamas and for Israel to withdraw.
Remember that old deal?
Trump calling it an historic agreement.
As disarmament is completed, Israeli forces will withdraw, and the International Stabilization Force will work with a new Palestinian police force to take responsibility for Gaza being safe for its residents and its neighbors.
According to the laid-out plan, Hamas is first required to disarm, after which Israel must withdraw from the enclave. However, despite Donald Trump's claims, one of the key Hamas negotiators, Ghazi Hamad, says that no disarmament will happen until Israel leaves Gaza. And according to some Israeli officials, that is very unlikely to happen.
The way I see it, Gaza neighborhoods are for police officers, neighborhoods for soldiers, neighborhoods for officers. There is no vacuum. If we are not there, Hamas will be there.
We are prepared to establish 3 settlements in the northern part of the Strip immediately, as soon as we receive the green light from the Prime Minister and the Defense Minister. I call on the Prime Minister. Give us the green light. Let us complete the mission and bring security to the residents of the South.
I want to say that we will remain in a security zone as long as necessary to protect our country. Because after the 7th of October, I set a simple principle. Israel will not allow terrorist organizations to penetrate our borders.
All right, let's break down the comments coming from all sides here. We're going to cross live now to journalist Mohammed Najib. There's Mohammed joining us live from Ramallah at 12:15 on Friday. Mohammed, it's great to get you on the program. Welcome to it here on RT.
Thank you, Robbie.
It's great to have you here. Just break it down for me, if you wouldn't mind. How realistic is it to expect Hamas to surrender its weapons while Israeli forces remain deep inside Gaza and Israeli officials continue speaking about maintaining some kind of security presence? Is this a realistic outlook for now, Mohammed?
Hamas will share that the Israeli withdraw from the yellow line in Gaza. Israel now currently is occupying 70% of the Gaza Strip, and Hamas taking control over only 30%. And since the ceasefire, Israel had killed 1,100 of Hamas, 800 more are cadres. So Hamas was unable to retaliate for their murder. And now, after this agreement, Hamas said they will have the reconstruction of the Gaza Strip. They can pull out of the governance of Gaza and abandon their weapons, but they will not turn and surrender their weapons to Israel. It's the Gaza National Administrative Committee. So they said it turned to a Palestinian committee, not to Israel, and this came as efforts of 6 months of diplomacy by Vladimir and the other parties to reach this agreement. So Hamas made the strategic decision to abandon its weapons and abandon also the governance of Gaza and allow the reconstruction of the Gaza Strip.
In part of this potential plan, Hamas will provide maps of tunnels, arms depots, and weapons production facilities, which will then be destroyed. Israel will reportedly withdraw in phases and only to the post-October 2025 ceasefire lines. But if Israel intends to maintain a security zone in Gaza indefinitely, Mohammed, can this agreement truly be considered an end to the conflict?
Hamas depends on international guarantees, as this agreement declared by U.S. President Donald Trump, so Netanyahu cannot say no to that. And what sacrifice does Netanyahu give that he go from the yellow line and stop the assassination of Hamas leaders? It's not that a big price for Israel. So for Hamas, they will guarantee the stop of their cadres and the members by Israel, and also to guarantee the reconstruction of Gaza Strip. And they will come to the political scene as a political movement, political party, not a resistance movement, because that was a lot of issues for Gaza. And Hamas concluded that no construction can take place in Gaza if it continue rejecting this argument. So they agreed to this issue.
What about, part of the proposed plan, Mohammed, includes an international stabilization force and a new Palestinian police force taking responsibility for Gaza's security, Mohammed. But who would have authority over those forces, and would they be accepted by Palestinians on the ground?
Yeah, actually, Vladimir signed an agreement with Moroccan police to come 500 or more than 500 to come to Gaza in the coming weeks. And also, they train a Palestinian police force to be deployed in the Gaza Strip. But this will be under the Gaza National Committee and not under Israel control. So that will be accepted by the Palestinians. And also, they were discussing that some of the Gazan who were Hamas police would be accepted to join this force or not. It's still under discussion. But this will guarantee the Gaza people and for all the parties to have a better situation, as since the ceasefire right now, there is no reconstructions. And the sufferance of the Gaza people, 2 million of Gaza people, continues. So Hamas and the other parties, especially also Dahlan, who intervened in that, and the United Arab Emirates, want to solve the situation and make a better future for the Gaza people. And hopefully this agreement will be a strong sign on this road, especially it's backed by U.S. President Donald Trump.
Yeah, it's a strong sign, as you said, but perhaps there is still quite a lot of work to do in the future. Journalist Mohammed Najib, live in Ramallah. Thank you for your time today.
Well, there you go.
All right, well, let's start with this. Alex Jones, who was once a staunch supporter of
the removal of Trump. It's happening.
2020, also in 2024. He had a brief
People are petitioning for it, anyways.
DeSantis instead of Donald Trump, but he's been a big supporter of Donald Trump. He is now calling for Trump to be removed using the 25th Amendment. Watch this.
The big issue is how to stop Trump. And we
have went into a camp today.
3 times tried to vote war powers. They're supposed to authorize a war. This is a war. They're getting the draft ready. If this isn't a war, nothing's a war. I mean, this is absolutely out of control. And so I'm calling for it right now. 25th Amendment, impeachment, whatever needs to happen to get this front and center, to get control of our country. It's impeachable alone that the president supporting the NDAA. I agree with Tucker Carlson and all of the people that voted for this. The mergers with the foreign military, it actually says in Section 219.
However, if flawed, as Iverson's going to go into.
And I do think it's crazy now. Imagine what's coming with this. They want us in a total war, so they can censor and take our freedoms and nationalize everything and push us aside with AI, total liability, immunity, and protection. This is a disaster. We are facing tyranny, but the public's awakening. We've got to come together and transcend left and right, and we have to say no to an expanded war that will definitely destroy the economy, kill a bunch of our troops. They're preparing a massive ground invasion.
So I guess now Alex Jones is part of the woke right. That's what some people are calling it. People like Tucker Carlson and Thomas Massey and Candace Owens. I guess you could just lump Alex Jones right in there too. They've just all collectively lost their minds at the same time. What are they all drinking? Something insane that they would actually go against Donald Trump and the war machine that is controlled completely by Israel, doing Israel's bidding. Oh no, what is it that has caused these people to go nuts? But Alex Jones is calling for his impeachment. He goes further and he explains it even more.
But you add this type of craziness, it just smells of nuclear war and death to have this guy in charge of all this. As Tucker said yesterday, he's really not in charge. And, I said 25th Amendment when he said kill the whole culture of Iran, glowing crater, that meant nukes. I said be serious about that 25th Amendment. At this point, he has half-baked all this. It's a total disaster. And I just want to completely divide myself from Trump 100%, no matter what he does now, no matter how much good done stuff. This war is too dangerous. This is all too evil. And I just say 25th Amendment, but that's me on record. I want to be 100% clear in front of God and everybody that I'm not with this demon-possessed thing or whatever he's become.
However, the 25th Amendment, she'll explain what that is.
You're going to need an act of Congress in order to get the 25th Amendment through, in order to actually do it. The process of the 25th Amendment, specifically Section 4, provides a constitutional process for removing a president.
In other
if the
words,
president is unable
you
to
ain't
discharge the
going to
powers
be
and
able to
duties of the
remove him.
office. So it is
Not
designed
under
for
the 25th Amendment, at
incapacity,
least.
not as a substitute for impeachment or for disagreements over policy. So you have to basically say the person is. It's been used a couple of times when presidents have had to go under anesthesia for surgery, so they were totally incapacitated, so they were temporarily removed from office, or if you think they've lost their minds, but, which, of course you could argue all the time, but really if the person is showing that they're of sound mind and that they're able to make decisions, then no, you cannot just 25th Amendment them. The way that it would work is that the vice president and cabinet, the majority of the cabinet, would have to send a written declaration stating that the president is unable to discharge the powers and duties of the office. And then at that moment, the vice president immediately becomes the acting president. But of course, the president can contest it. So if the president believes that they are capable, then they send their own written declaration to the same congressional leaders stating that there's no inability that exists. And then the president resumes power unless the vice president and cabinet respond within 4 days by reaffirming that the president is unable. And then Congress decides. So if there is a dispute, Congress must then within 48 hours, and they have up to 21 days to decide, they've got to decide for themselves. So to keep the president from resuming power in order to truly 25th Amendment him out of the place, both the House and the Senate must be a two-thirds vote. So there's got to be a two-thirds majority of the House and the Senate that say, yes, the president is unable to perform their duties. And if either chamber falls short of that two-thirds majority, the president regains their powers immediately. So what counts as unable? That's a good question because the Constitution actually doesn't define that. So that has never really been challenged, hasn't really been tested. Most constitutional scholars, however, say things like a severe stroke. Okay, that makes sense. A coma, advanced dementia, or Alzheimer's, something that's advanced profound cognitive impairment. They have to have serious mental incapacity or other medical conditions that make the president incapable of governing. So it's got to be something that really makes it to where they are not capable of making decisions anymore. Probably a stroke. That would be, I think, the most likely use case of the 25th Amendment, besides what we've already seen is when a president goes under anesthesia, which is very brief. But besides that, I would think that a severe stroke or being, an attempted assassination, let's say if the bullet actually got Trump in the head, but he didn't die, and it made him, his brain not function properly, those are the types of things that I think the 25th Amendment really would actually be in use for. So, and you might say, well, yeah, but Trump has that. We think he has dementia. There's rumors that he's pooing his pants all the time, that he doesn't know where he is. We see videos of him kind of wandering around a little bit. Like, people are kind of Joe Bidening the guy, right? But you would still need two-thirds of Congress. And here's the problem. Congress is totally in bed with Israel as well, and they're totally supporting Donald Trump's decisions to go forward with these wars. They support Ukraine, they support Israel, they support genocide, they support all of this. So they're not going to be any help. In fact, today, Republicans, once again, they voted, Senate Republicans, and I'm not sure if Democrats actually voted for this as well, but certainly the Republicans, they rejected a resolution to stop the war. They've done this now. This is the second time that they were presented with, hey, the American public does not want this war. Two-thirds of the American public don't want this war. And the Senate was asked to stop the war, and what do? They vote for it. They say, no, we're not going to stop the war. Watch this. 49 yeas, 15 nays, and then it goes, this is the motion to discharge, Resolution 181, a joint resolution to direct, what was that?
On this vote, the yeas are 49, the nays are 15, the motion is not agreed to.
Okay. It was a joint resolution to direct the removal of the United States Armed Forces from hostilities within or against Iran. So it was to end the war and to bring our troops home and to not allow any other troops to be killed now that we're seeing a major escalation in this war. So they're not of any help. And you know that Congress is completely bought off by AIPAC. So they're not going to be removing Donald Trump. I don't even think that we can actually impeach the guy. But let's just go through our options as Americans who are watching our corrupted government, watching them do the bidding of a foreign Middle Eastern country. What can we possibly do? So let's go back over the 25th Amendment. Could we do that? No, not really. The 25th Amendment was written for presidential incapacity. So not allegations of corruption, foreign influence, or misconduct. Section 4 of the 25th Amendment allows the vice president and the majority of the cabinet to declare that the president is unable to discharge powers and duties of the office, if the president is in an incapacitated state.
Like what happened to Biden. There was times during the Biden administration when they didn't know where the president was, and of course Trump definitely capitalized on that. It's like, hey man, where's your president? The Ohio spill, etc. Because Biden half the time was incapacitated, so they could have used the 25th Amendment there. However, though, there's more calling in for his impeachment as this next video goes into, right? Not just Alex Jones, but that. However, just Alex Jones and the InfoWars alone brings in a large audience, right? Egyptians against Egyptians, right? Not regarding their kings and their princes, right? So here we go.
Donald Trump is panicking as the calls to impeach him grow louder. Donald Trump largely went silent all last night following the news that the Department of Justice and Jeanine Pirro moved to dismiss the indictment against David Hearn in the Lincoln Memorial Reflecting Pool case, admitting that the damage was the result of flawed, botched installation work, not vandalism. And you had Jeanine Pirro throw Donald Trump under the bus now. Even Scott Jennings, you don't get much more of a MAGA bootlicker than that guy on CNN who literally takes Donald Trump's boot and starts licking it on CNN. Even he is saying the man prosecuted by Jeanine Pirro should sue the hell out of the Trump administration. They dragged this guy's name through the mud. A two-time Olympic canoeist who was wrongfully targeted because Donald Trump was too stupid to even deal with a reflecting pool and was telling everybody if you just paint it blue, the algae will go away. Well, you can't just paint things blue, Donald. Whether it's a reflecting pool, whether it's the economy, you can't just make up
but it's the
$19.1
deep
trillion
state.
are coming in.
Deep
When they ain't
state's
coming in,
means
you can't paint it
Democrats.
blue and say you control the Strait of Hormuz. When you don't, you can't say, oh, you're speaking with the Iranians and they really want to make a deal. They're begging you because they don't have a navy or military. You can't paint it blue. The algae always comes back and you are exposed as a liar. It's a karma boomerang, as Scott McFarlane from the Midas Touch Network explains. The final paragraph of the Justice Department's motion to dismiss the case against David Hearn is quite something. Here's what it says. A recent visual inspection showed damage throughout the reflecting pool, even in the middle of the pool, where a vandal would not likely attempt to peel the lining. Given all of this newly discovered information, it is difficult to attribute the widespread damage to the reflecting pool to vandalism, let alone to establish that fact beyond a reasonable doubt. It also goes on to say in the motion by the DOJ, almost immediately after the work was initially completed, before David Hearn was ever arrested, peeling was observed along the pool perimeter. We were showing that on the Midas Touch Network. The NPS, the National Park Service engineers' June 11, 2026 email stated that the cause of the damage was contractor error via overspray, that the peeled lining would not float and that the peeling would not impact the strength of the liner. Yeah, you're all a bunch of frauds, but I want you to remember this. This is the Trump DOJ covering up child sex trafficking rings, covering up the Epstein files, and telling everybody, we produced everything. Really? This group of people who did this to the reflecting pool want us to believe they've turned over the Epstein files? BS. This is the same group of people saying they brought in $19.1 trillion while our debt increases and the deficit expands. They're a bunch of damn frauds. They're scumbags. They're con artists. These are terrible human beings. Remember that. These are just bad people who hate America, and they hate us all, and they just want to take from us, these despicable Trump regime people. These are the same people who are doing this catastrophic and unlawful war in Iran. The reflecting pool people, the Burgos, the Lutnicks, the Trumps, the Pirros, the Hegsets, this sicko group of Epstein class.
Doesn't sound like the people really like him,
for Trump to be impeached, for Jeanine Pirro to be disbarred. People want Donald Trump to go before the ICC. Throw that war criminal before the Hague. Hegseth is a war criminal. Put him before the Hague. Brad Cooper, the head of CENTCOM, a war criminal. And why do I say this? I'm not being hyperbolic. Y'all killed little girls at an elementary school in Manab. You keep on killing people off the coast of Venezuela in fishing boats. You killed civilians across the Middle East. You aid and abet genocide. Want to look at what you did in the past 48 hours? As New York Times reports, we reported this before, visuals suggest the U.S. dropped a 2,000-pound bomb on a home in Iran, killing 3. Here's the family of 3 who were killed. 3 members of an Iranian family were killed, and 2 other children from the family were injured in a U.S. airstrike in a residential neighborhood of Keshem Island. Remember when we reported on that 48 hours ago, and everybody was like, well, I'm not reading that anywhere else yet because they don't know what the hell they're talking about. The Americans dropped a 2,000-pound bomb on these civilians, and they killed a husband, his wife, and their 2-year-old son. But when Donald Trump was in Camp David, right before he leaked to CBS, which is state regime media, and he leaked to Wall Street Journal that the U.S. was about to massively escalate in Iran with Netanyahu and destroy power plants and bridges and desalination facilities and cause mass death amongst the 90 million population over their more horrific war crimes, before Donald Trump leaked that piece as part of his, we're going to bomb the hell out of them. They want to do a deal. We're going to bomb that out of them. When Trump was in Camp David, this part doesn't get enough attention. You have Marco Rubio was talking about how the United States is attacking the International Criminal Courts, the ICC, and Trump's like, I just want to let you know, they're not going after me. We just want to protect Bibi. We want to protect Netanyahu. Listen to what Trump says here for yourself. Let's play it.
They were very arrogant. We've now begun an effort to really try to bring that court to heel.
There's no information that they're after me. He could have. Just so you know. He's talking about it. He's not trying to defend me. He is trying to defend Bibi and various other people. But there are many people that shouldn't be looked at that way. But there is no indication that I'm one of them at this moment.
Now, Donald Trump then went to state regime media CBS, state regime media Fox, and other regime media and said, the United States is going to massively escalate, destroy all the power plants in Iran. He was doing that. Now, when he did that, he thought that Iran was going to be scared. What's the thing where you do the same thing over and over again and you expect a different result? Yeah, insanity. I mean, Donald Trump is literally a psychotic, insane lunatic, right? You know, if you saw him in the corner of like a bar, you know, like screaming, that's basically what we have right now in the Oval Office. I actually trust that drunk at the bar who's doing actually more than Donald Trump, because the guy at the bar may actually fall asleep at the right hours of the day, whatever that means. But let me explain to you what Iran just did. Iran didn't just strike one. Iran struck at least 2 tankers, maybe more, that we're once again trying to go through that southern route in the Strait of Hormuz, because CENTCOM's like,
the illegal route.
We got your back. And Iran's like, bam, no you don't, we don't got you. Stop using the southern route. We told you we're going to strike you. We're going to destroy your ship if you do that. So Iran did that earlier yesterday. Then late last night, early this morning, another tanker by Oman was reported by the UK MTO. Hey, we got a UK MTO warning. Haven't seen those. They just stopped them. We knew that Iran was striking a lot of those tankers in the southern route, but like it seemed like the UK MTO went silent. We were seeing all these tankers being shot in that southern route. Now, I also want to point out the following. Iran's undeterred, right? Iran's not worried about Donald Trump saying, Iran sees Trump as reflecting pool boy. America is, it doesn't mean that Trump can't unleash devastation. The United States has powerful, I don't want to underestimate, okay? The U.S. has a powerful military arsenal, but Trump's reflecting pool boy, right? You're willing to lie about reflecting pool? You pathetic scum. You're going to hurt your own U.S. Olympic canoeist, you scumbag. What do you think Iran thinks when they say, what do you think our ally, what do you think people look like? They go, this guy is a scumbag loser. That's how people view the leader of the United States. People view the U.S. as some grotesque thing right now under this sick regime leadership. So with all of that going on too, let's talk about what else is happening, right? What was it, 48 hours ago? Donald Trump announced the deal. What was it, Warren Buffett, who said, you can't ever do a great deal with a bad person. Can't do good deals with bad people, okay? It doesn't work that way. Bad people don't do good deals.
Yeah, because it just raised tariffs on you.
So Donald Trump announced 48 hours ago. Today, the Board of Peace reached a historic agreement for the complete disarmament of Hamas and all other armed groups in Gaza. A monumental
You just heard about what that means.
Would you do this deal with yourself? What would you do this deal? The Board of Peace, what the hell is that even? What the hell? The Board of Peace. You like making up like when I grew up, there was a monk. Mock United Nations metropolitan area. We create our organizations. The Board of Peace declared it. Okay, but you know who didn't declare it? Israel. Okay, Israel authorities marked the new Trump Board of Peace agreement with massive airstrikes targeting residential blocks in Gaza in the middle of the night, killing a ton of people with the continuation of the genocide. Great work, Donald. You did it. You did the deal, Donald. You did the deal. You're a deal maker, Donald. Deal. You did the deal.
By peace you shall destroy many, right? Because that's what Esau does, especially Amalek. So, okay, let me close this. Let me close this. Slovakia. Locking up again. And of course, this has been getting backlash. If you remember the Culture Club in the 80s, right? I mean, they had some good hits and everything. But everybody knew that Boy George was a gay boy, right? I mean, he publicly admitted it, right? You know, while others like George Michael or, you know, some of the others, you didn't know that they were gay. Boy George was kind of obvious about it. But like everything else, though, you know, now he's got a song out there that is pretty much justifying everything that the Israeli state does. Soldier Soul, Boy George faces backlash over a song denying the Gaza genocide. Boy George released a new song with lyrics that can be interpreted as denying the genocide against Palestinians by Israel, you know, the Israeli state. So, like everything else, though, you know, that's what he's doing now. And it's getting a lot of backlash. See, Amalek has become the most hated. I made the small among the nations the most hated, right? The Culture Club frontman released We Will Dance Again on X and Instagram on Sunday, captioning the post simply Shalom, which it's actually Shalom, but we know that pretty much though, these gutter rats are not the real Israelites. We've gone into that time and time again. You say genocide, I say war. When you're attacked, that's what the army's for. Boy George sings, dismissing a characterization that has been agreed on by leading human rights organizations, UN experts, and genocide scholars. This song has sparked a fierce backlash online with musicians, activists, and public figures accusing the singer of denying Israeli documented atrocities against Palestinians and whitewashing the devastation in Gaza, where more than 73,000 people have been killed, and we know it's a lot bigger than that. These people have been murdered, and a lot of people are still missing, which is still among the murdered. Since 2023, and thousands more remain missing beneath the rubble or are otherwise unaccounted for. So, like everything else, though, he should receive backlash, right? Because thou art greatly despised. Most High is the one that's doing this. See, shameful spewing is upon Esau, Edom, and all of his atrocities, especially with Amalek. And Amalek is behind this one, too. Remember, Spain would not support Donald Trump and would not support a war against Iran, which is really an Israeli war. Well, King Bibi did this. You know, he sent these migrants in to destroy Spain. So Spain is getting destroyed from within as King Bibi has pushed a bunch of terrorists in there, militants. Spain says over 48,300 migrants have returned to Morocco from Ceuta, if I'm pronouncing correctly. More than 48,300 of the approximate 50,000 migrants who entered the Spanish enclave of Ceuta since early Thursday have returned to Morocco by Friday morning, Spain's Interior Ministry said. Despite the large number of departures, thousands of migrants remain in different neighborhoods of Ceuta with no clear destination according to this report. So basically, internal problems, right, to destroy it. And, you know, this thing is spilled over, but this is what you got, is the influx. Italy suspends Schengen travel with agreement with Spain after horrifying Ceuta invasion. So there we go. Spain's getting cut off. I mean, Trump wanted to remove Spain from NATO. Well, now you got other countries agreeing. Italy suspends Schengen agreement with Spain over Ceuta invasion. Europe's right-wing blasts Spanish socialists for border failure. Riots erupted in Ceuta as so-called illegals clashed with security forces, all done by you-know-who. So here we go, we'll play some of this.
Major breaking news to bring you now. Italy has said that it has suspended the EU's Schengen free travel regime
with
Spain after the Ceuta migrant crisis. That statement just coming into us now, that Italy has suspended its EU Schengen free travel plans, its regime with Spain, after this ongoing Ceuta migrant crisis.
So there you have it. That'll destroy their economy because Italy builds up their economy. So like everything else, so this guy goes into it, so we're going to go ahead and play that. So this guy popped up on BitChute, so I'm just taking a look at his video here. As it looks like he's in Spain, so he's giving you a first-hand look on what's going on, because of course we got to look beyond the mainstream media, right? You know, to get a good look at everything, right? So here we go.
An emergency has been declared over Spain. Europe is burning right now, and the UK could run out of natural gas this winter.
Yeah,
wow,
there you
what
go.
a walk and talk you are in for today.
I think gas is going to go out worldwide.
Here, and let's walk back down. So let's begin with the biggest story of the last 24 hours then, which I think is undeniably Spain's border being overrun. It's the Spain-Moroccan border being overrun. And I want to get into some details today, which you're not seeing in the media, and also which is being completely manipulated by the media. And I think even a lot of people posting on social media are not actually aware of the full details of what's taking place here. In fact, these scenes were so bad that to me, if I were the Prime Minister, the first thing I would have done was called an emergency meeting. I wouldn't have gone to sleep, and I would have taken care of the crisis. But Sanchez, no, he went to bed basically, went to sleep, and they said they'd deal with it in the morning, and then even this morning they weren't up early to deal with it. By the time they held the press conference to say they were going to send the military, it was 11 a.m. in the UK, which is already lunchtime, is later in Spain. So I don't know what was going on. Maybe they had a little siesta or something before they did the press conference. Who knows? But the whole thing was absolutely bizarre. But let's get into some of the details that you probably haven't heard on the mainstream media then. So Sanchez did his big press conference, and he said that they were sending the army to deal with the situation. I'll give you the exact statement shortly, but to help with the situation. But here's what they didn't tell you. What they sent were not infantry soldiers or something similar to deal with the situation, i.e. stop the situation. They sent a medical detachment to actually help the people and give medical assistance. So it's very different from how he sort of explained it on the press conference, that he was dealing with the situation. In fact, he refused to declare it as an emergency and send the military when the event was happening. It was only after everyone has crossed that he's now actually dealing with it. And I want to get into what a disgrace the media has been with the coverage of this story. I mean, if you ever want to know which media you can trust, i.e. who you can trust, and you just read the headlines and see who says what about the situation. And I took down notes of loads of these headlines. So one of the big ones was the coverage is all about poor, malnourished women and children crossing the border. Firstly, that's a complete lie. Look at the video footage for yourself. You are being lied to. It wasn't women and children malnourished crossing the border. These men, it was, I'd say 99%, but at the low end, I'd say 95% was men crossing the border. And these men don't look malnourished to me. Let me throw a few images on screen I saw in the press overnight. Yeah, malnourished men indeed. And the only reason the media actually picked this up and covered it was because at first you probably noticed it was a complete media blackout when this was happening, but it went all over X. In fact, my entire feed on X was just this story. I would say 7 out of 10 posts I was scrolling through were just this story. And I think it got so big globally that the media then had to cover it. So they started with all these sort of stories. Hold on, let me read this. This was the first one I saw. 9 dead as thousands of migrants enter Spain's Ceuta enclave from Morocco. So that was as if, that was the main part of the story. It was the 9 dead. And they say thousands, but they're not telling the true amount. In fact, BBC, Reuters, Sky News, they were all saying the same thing. They were saying 2,000 to 3,000 people crossed. Anyone, you would have to be an absolute fool to believe that there was only 2,000 or 3,000 people in this video footage. It's tens of thousands of people. Anyone can tell. You only need to put the video footage into an AI and it will tell you, there's roughly X amount of people, which is what I did, and it said roughly 30,000 people in this video. But the true numbers of what they believe crossed just overnight was somewhere around 49,000 people. Now, think about that for a second. The media's telling you it's 2,000 to 3,000. Why would they do that? When it was actually 49,000, and there'll be even more crossing today into a small town with the residents somewhere in the region of 85,000 people that live in that town. And you've probably got 50,000 people or more now in that small town. I tell you, I would not want to be living in that town right now. And just a quick one here, if you're fed up with all the MSM mainstream media lies and what they feed you, feel free to subscribe to my channel here because I will give you the truth. And in regards to security here, or financial security in particular, that is what this channel is all about. And I even created a free guide for you. It's called the Financial Survival Guide. I highly recommend that you download that. You can find the link either in the description or the comment here. And it's free, you don't have to pay anything, and even the email series that comes with it is completely free. It will really help you out to prepare for this world that we are moving into. And I thought it was interesting that where I live today, I saw a story on the Isle of Man. There's now going to be ID checks at the port of entry. So it's amazing to me, this wasn't being done beforehand. So you could quite literally get on the ferry in the UK and come to the island, which remember is a separate country. It's a separate legal entity, it's not part of the UK. And you could just come to the island with no ID, which is, I think, exactly, if you read all the forums, that's exactly what people are saying at the moment. Hold on, what is going on? Very unusual groups of people have been turning up in the last few weeks. So it looks like the government is going to do a crackdown any day now and insist on ID now from people coming into the island. But I was thinking about it, and I don't even think that's going to work because Sanchez legalized 500,000 people who were illegal. They crossed into Spain illegally. 500,000 people he legalized. So they will very shortly, if they haven't already, got a Spanish passport, and they'll just be able to come across on their Spanish passport. And I think this is why we're seeing a lot of change now in the Union, the European Union, with the rise of the right-wing parties and the decline of the left-wing parties. And I think that's a trend that's going to continue. Germany will probably be one of the next to fall in terms of the current parties in power, with someone like the AfD rising in power, and you'll start to see a lot of changes there. Giorgia Meloni of Italy has even threatened to close the borders to the Schengen region, which is obviously the open border policy throughout Europe. So we're seeing a lot of changes happening at a very rapid rate at the moment. But I wanted to read out another headline, and it says, "Women and children feared drowned as crowd enters Spanish territory." Well, again, it's true. What they're saying is not true, but it's misleading. There were no women and children that were feared dead. I looked at all the details of the reports, and it was a number of men who can't swim, basically, but decided to give it a go anyway. And the other thing I want to tell you about is all around this journey that they're talking about. Oh, this swim, this deadly swim, etc. I'll tell you exactly how deadly this swim is that takes 3 minutes and is only 200 meters in a moment when we get into it. But again, it's so misleading because they put images up of the Spanish coastline and then Morocco. So you look at it and you think, wow, they swim all that distance. It must take them hours, 10 hours to make that swim or something. No, again, they're lying and misleading the public. It's literally a 200-meter swim. It takes about 3 minutes to swim it. About 1 minute for a more, someone who swims regularly, like a professional or something. There's about 3 minutes swim for an average person. But, this stuff is just crazy, the things that they kind of keep saying. But the thing that really got on my nerves was this one. So they interviewed all these women. So there were some women there, they got them on camera. And this one, here it is. She said, "I thought I could cross by foot through the border with my husband and children, but we are stuck here, unable to go back home after my husband left before we woke up to swim the border," she said. Okay, so let me get this straight. First of all, her husband just randomly got up and decided to just swim for it and leave his wife and kids behind. Is that genuinely what happened? I doubt it, but if it is true, then what sort of a man leaves his wife and kids and just does that. I don't know. But it gets worse. It gets worse. This one just left me shaking my head. Are you ready for this? Early on Thursday, Fatima, 21, I don't know why they put their ages, but 21, with her 4 daughters, said that it was unfair, and she clutched her children in desperation, that the Spanish people would open their hearts and let us in. There are thousands of women and children here, she said, and we just need a chance at a new life in the UK. To join our friends and family, but first we need to be allowed into Spain. So, again, how on earth are these people, these impoverished people from war zones, apparently, are they speaking perfect English? Why have they got iPhones? But even worse than that, why were loads of these guys that made the journey streaming it to TikTok? I mean, A, they've got a mobile phone, but B, they've got data as well. They've got some sort of a SIM plan, an international SIM plan. I don't know what that would cost for these guys. Some of them have got thick gold chains. They're wearing what looks to be quite designer clothing. I mean, it's bizarre that people are still believing the media gaslighting on all of this stuff, that these are people escaping poverty. It's nonsense, guys. I'm sorry, I know some of you won't like it, but it's absolute nonsense. And if you believe that these people are just desperate women and children, then I can't help you at all. But the other thing that's worrying is that 21-year-old Fatima, was it, with all of her children, wants to join her friends and family in the UK. And you think about it, once they get processed in where they are at the moment, which holds 500 people, and there's 50,000 people. So I think it's the UN and all these other people that are there, and they're saying the scenes on the ground are apocalyptic. These are the words that they are saying. It says there's literally people everywhere. There's burning vehicles as well. I mean, why would you just start setting houses and vehicles on fire? What sort of a person does that? And these people are very soon going to be spread throughout Europe. Because you think once they've been processed, they are transported to the Spanish mainland. And from there, they can basically go anywhere. And I don't think people really understand it because they've been brainwashed by the BBC to say that it's racist to have any concerns about these things, when actually you've got to be pretty dumb to not have any concerns about all of these guys, these men, who are just rushing into the country. Why do you think, for a long time now, governments do checks? They do background checks if you want a visa and things like that from safe countries. So to allow people coming in from war-torn countries, and not all of them are, by the way, it is madness to me. I mean, obviously, it is just throwing common sense out the window. And that's why I think a lot of this is planned and deliberate. I really do. But hold on, there's more of these. There's loads of them if you want to look any of them up for yourself. Aisha, 17, okay, 17, ready? Said she just wants a new life for her 3 daughters after her husband swam the crossing. Well, hold on, just think about that. I mean, it was only when I actually took a note of that and I read it for the second time, I actually realised the situation. 17 years old, wait, was it 3 or 4? 3 children at 17 years old, so 16, 15, 14, that means that she got pregnant at 12 or 13 years old. I mean, this is not right. This is very weird indeed. I just don't know how this is going to work. And she's trying to get to Manchester. My goodness, I don't know how many people are trying to get into the UK right now from this border, rushing the border. But the UK is already full. For anyone watching, it's already full. My goodness. Because just remember, I think it was September the 12th, 2020, when I made that video, The Great Reset, which I would say was one of the 3 main videos that built my subscriber base here. Because until that point, people didn't really understand or know about The Great Reset. And that video I made got to 500,000 views, like, so quickly, and then it was banned, of course, in my channel. Those of you who've been subscribed since then will remember, my channel was taken down for, I think it was a week or 2. And then there was even a BBC Verify or documentary, whatever it was, where they were fact-checking me. They called me a conspiracy theorist for saying all of these things. But then afterwards, it all came to be true. The whole video documentary I did has come true. Every single piece in that documentary that was called conspiracy has now come to pass. And I said it would happen by 2030, and it's already here. We're in 2026 now.
Hey, there you go. Did Apostle Tahar not say, though, that they would really fast-track Agenda 2030? Well, we could definitely see that the Most High is fast-tracking it, man. You know? And Apostle Tahar is the most in tune because Great Millstone has the 100% truth. You know? And no doubt that they are fast-tracking this. You know, we definitely see that World War III, you know, is already here. All the players are already here. It's just a matter of time that this thing turns into a ground war, and then you see Russia and all its forces move in to protect Iran. And all the other places around there for that matter. You know, Iran has a large support group too, even though you don't really see it right now because all you're really seeing is the U.S. sides and all these other Gulf nations. But Iran has a much larger axis of resistance, and they're not alone. Russia, Gog Magog, China, you know, which is Moab, all of them will be sending in soldiers very soon to back up Iran when Iran requests it. But right now, Iran's not requesting it because they're beating the shit out of Donald Trump. Donald Trump said he was going to beat the shit out of Iran. Iran is beating the shit out of Donald Trump. Just again, making him look like a sock puppet. A sock puppet, just pretty much, I can do this and I can do that. And it's like, fuck you, punk. No, you can't. No, you can't. King Bibi accuses New York City mayor of backing Iran, Hamas, and Hezbollah. Huh. Oh, okay, yeah, because he doesn't like Muslims there. The ICC issued an arrest warrant for King Bibi in 2024 over Israeli military campaign in Gaza. Mamandi has said his administration would seek to enforce the warrant if presented with opportunity to do so. Okay, so basically King Bibi is grilling him on that. Because, King Bibi pretty much runs Babylon the Great. Speaking to Fuck News host Hannity this week, King Bibi accused the mayor of siding with Iran, which he described as a mortal enemy of both the Israeli state and the U.S. So there we go. But like everything else, though, the people are tired of it, but we already know that about the plans of the IDF taking over here. Well, everybody else goes and fights and dies for the Israeli state, and they're rounding people up to go and fight for that bullshit, as well as getting the New World Order ready. Israeli state racing to deepen U.S. integration, aka the NDAA, amid collapsing public support. Congressman Massi says Israeli merger with U.S. military constitutes a loss of U.S. sovereignty. So that's another congressman that's kind of against this. But nonetheless, though, here it is. Israeli state is pursuing long-term strategy to immerse itself within the U.S. military, intelligence, and defense establishment, fearing that collapse in U.S. public support for Israeli state could otherwise jeopardize billions in future USA capital empire, reported on the 30th of July. Currently, Israeli state receives military aid from the U.S. that must be approved annually through transparent votes by lawmakers in Congress and the Senate, which is all compromise. So, like everything else, though, Congressman Kuhnke warns Tucker Carlson that Section 219 of the NDAA is designed to drag the U.S. into future wars Israeli state has planned in West Asia. The least the flock shall draw them out, right? You see it speaking. We're looking at it.
What about, the Secretary of War, the Secretary of State,
Pete Hegseth? He's talking about COTS.
Cabinet secretaries, House and Senate leaders, everyone in the White House, they're all on board with giving a foreign country control over our military?
Who knows who's on board? It's in the legislation now, and they vote for it. It's law. This entangles our military in whatever Israel chooses to do. They want to go to war against Egypt. They want to go to war against Turkey as part of this Zionist expansion. Hey, we're pulled right along with it, and our country then becomes a target. Our country then becomes vulnerable based on anything Israel chooses to do, because we are partners then. And we have no control over that. We don't have any control over what they'll do. It's like a fantastic thinking that we can bring them into the military, and all of a sudden we're going to control them. No, the way you control them is to keep the IDF at bay, and try to work out some kind of diplomatic relations, which really aren't working out right now, because otherwise why would you have so many dead people in Palestine and in Lebanon? There's no diplomacy going on. It's basically a license to kill that Israel has.
Yep, and like everything else, though, shall make their habitations desolate with them. We see it speaking. You not hear it? I hear it. Iraq says no evidence drone attack against Saudi oil infrastructure was launched from its territory. But Iraq has been accused of it, right? Because there's a bigger plan to retake the Bab el-Mandeb Strait, as well as the Strait of Hormuz, and to also wipe out all other resistance forces. So that's why Saudi Arabia did this. Spokesman for Iraqi Prime Minister said on Thursday that there's no evidence that a drone attack against Saudi oil infrastructure was launched from Iraq. The claim that was used to justify U.S. Saudi strikes against Iraq. Sabah al-Numan said despite the lack of evidence, Iraq was still looking into the claims despite the absence of any evidence or proof to substantiate the Saudi claims regarding drone attacks against its territories originating from Iraq. Attacks killed at least 20 members of the PMF, a coalition of mostly Shia militias formed in 2014 to fight against ISIS, which the U.S. installed there. You know, we know that the U.S. and the Israeli state put ISIS in Syria and Iraq. So, we know who the real terrorists are, you know. But, like everything else, though, you know, anybody who's fighting against it, right? And 4 members of the IRGC, who, according to Iranian media, were working as security guards in Karbala, a holy city for Shia Muslims pilgrims traveling there for the upcoming Armenian holiday. So, like everything else, though, you know, Iraq is dragged into, so, you know, wider conflict happening, just like, you know, it said that the least the flock shall draw them out. RT reports from Iraq after U.S.-Saudi strikes. Joint strikes against Iraq's security forces have sparked political backlash. Joint U.S.-Saudi strikes against Iran-aligned militia positions across Iraq have sparked political backlash, with Baghdad condemning the attacks as a violation of the country's sovereignty. And it is. So, we'll play this.
From here in Karbala, preparations are continuing for Arba'in, one of the largest Shia Muslim gatherings in the world. But in the early hours of Wednesday, this city was also among 7 Iraqi provinces targeted in a joint American-Saudi airstrikes. The attacks began at around 2 o'clock in the morning, striking positions belonging to the Popular Mobilization Forces. The PMF, however, says at least 20 of its members were killed and 32 others wounded. Saudi Arabia says the strikes were carried out in response to drone launched from Iraqi territories against Saudi oil facilities. Ali Al-Zaidi has called an emergency meeting for Iraq's National Security Council and cancelled a visit to Saudi Arabia that had been scheduled for Thursday. Several Iraqi political blocs, particularly those associated with PMF, have condemned these strikes. Also, the former Prime Minister Mohammed Shia al-Sudani also described them as an aggression against Iraqi state institutions. The controversy has been deepened after the claims of the US President Donald Trump that the operation was carried in coordination with the Iraqi government. That stands in sharp contrast to the public Iraqi position, which describes the strike as a violation of sovereignty. The PMF is formally part of the Iraq's official security structure, meaning that the strikes are being treated here not as simple attacks on armed factions, but attacks on its institutions belonging to the Iraqi state. Only weeks after Al-Zaidi visited Washington seeking closer economic and political relations, his government is now facing its first major crisis with both Washington and Riyadh. Here in Karbala, preparation for Arba'in continue, but the latest strikes have again placed Iraq directly inside a wider regional confrontation that Baghdad has repeatedly tried to avoid. This is Ali Rasbaiti for RT in Karbala, Iraq.
So there you have it. That's what happened. So you see how this is spilled over, and that's what they wanted, was spillover. Trump orders fresh attack against Iranian targets. Wall Street Journal reports Trump has ordered a fresh attack against Iran that could begin as soon as this weekend. So that's what's going on this weekend. CBS reports that the U.S. and Israeli state are preparing campaign against Iranian energy infrastructure. So there you go, going after power plants. U.S. President Trump ordered a fresh attack against Iran that would begin as soon as this weekend and would last a few days. U.S. officials told Wall Street Journal on Friday. The goal of the strike is getting Tehran to surrender. Multiple sources who spoke to CBS News indicated the military campaign could commence over the weekend. Discussions have taken place regarding wrapping up operations before global financial markets open on Monday, due to concerns about the economic fallout in the U.S. and internationally. So, like everything else, though, if launched, The joint attacks would mark Israeli return to active combat operations following a temporary halt under the U.S. brokered ceasefire, which they never kept. Israeli state never even fucking kept it to begin with. And nonetheless, though, so he's mulling strikes, Trump mulling strikes on Iran's energy infrastructure. President Trump is considering fresh strikes against Iran's energy infrastructure in the coming days. Strikes may involve the Israeli military for the first time in weeks and would be expected to invite direct retaliation against the Israeli state. Trump alluded to the possibility of very hard strikes at the televised cabinet meeting on Friday. We'll be hitting them hard, very hard. You know, at some time they're going to say, we just can't take it anymore. Hard, very hard. You know, like his friend Vince McMahon. You know, because these pedophiles, but you already know that the reason why Vince McMahon had to step down from WWE is over rape charges. You know, that he sexually assaulted many of the wrestlers that worked underneath him. He just so happens to be good buddies with Donald Trump. You know, so gonna hit him hard. Gonna hit him really hard.
We've seen these strikes between Iran and the United States in the past few days. How do you reviving the ceasefire and getting diplomacy back on? Well, I think we just want to win. Yeah, we just want to win. We're doing very well. We're trying to be nice as you can be in a situation like that. But, you know, they're being decimated. They have no Navy, they have no Air Force, they have no anti-aircraft.
Yeah, here we go again. Yeah, we wiped out their military, their aircraft, their Navy.
We just want to win. We don't want to have them. It's very simple. They cannot have a nuclear weapon.
Oh boy, here we go again.
And they can't have a nuclear weapon. If they did, the Middle East would have been wiped out by now. If I didn't stop the JCPOA, the Obama deal, if I didn't do that, they would have had a nuclear weapon. I believe Israel would no longer be with us in big parts of the Middle East and perhaps other.
Boy, how full of shit can one get?
These people are crazy.
May as well put that fucking yarmulke on the back of them. And he's a small hat too. Yeah. But either way though, he's ruled by King Bibi. Iran can have a nuclear weapon. Well, anyways, yet Trump orders largest strike yet in Iran. So here we go. This is breaking. And just like Last American Vagabond, this guy here gets a lot of information before anybody else does. You know, if you catch an article or whatever, he's already reporting on it. So, you know, I'm subscribed to him and, well, breaking, you know, he orders largest strikes yet in Iran. Here we go.
This is a breaking news alert. Donald Trump has lost all control and has just made a fatal decision. Donald Trump and Netanyahu will be engaging in the largest attack yet on Iran. Both CBS, Wall Street Journal, and other outlets are reporting the U.S. and Israel, Donald Trump and Netanyahu, are preparing the largest attacks yet on Iran. They will be targeting energy infrastructure, power plants, refineries, bridges. They will be engaging in war crimes which could last up to 12 days, although Donald Trump is saying that he wants to end the strikes before the markets open on Monday because he believes it could be a bloodbath in the markets right now. Here's the headline from CBS. U.S. and Israel are preparing to bombard energy-related targets in Iran, sources say, and again, CBS is a state regime media. Wall Street Journal reporting the following. Trump orders fresh attack on Iran. U.S. officials are saying the attacks could begin as soon as this weekend, but frankly, at any minute, and it's supposed to be the largest attacks yet with a massive amount of war crimes. Now, Iran is indeed preparing. They have threatened that they will strike hard in Qatar, they will strike hard in Kuwait, in Jordan, in Bahrain, in Iraq. They will strike hard in the Arab nation neighbors, and they are prepared to destroy all of the infrastructure there. If energy infrastructure is hit in Iran, we should expect all energy infrastructure in the region to be obliterated. Also, not only does Iran now control the Strait of Hormuz and the Houthis, the Bab el-Mandab Strait, but also you have those internet cables underneath the Strait of Hormuz, which Iran has threatened to destroy, and they are saying they will make good on that threat, disabling the internet throughout the Middle East and impacting the entire world. Donald Trump posting this creepy photo of himself. He was in Camp David today with his cabinet of war criminals where the decision was made, along with Netanyahu, to engage in the largest attack yet on Iran. Folks, we do indeed expect massive amounts of casualties in Iran and in the region. This is a deeply disturbing report indeed, and what we're hearing from sources as well is indeed deeply disturbing. Donald Trump was joined at the hip by his so-called human printer, Natalie Harp, while the decision to engage in these war crimes with Netanyahu was made. You see Natalie Harp, his human printer. Other people believe that there are other things going on there. You see her there at Camp David with Donald Trump. She was with him all the way when this decision was made, this fatal decision to engage in these strikes. So here's what we are learning as well. And remember, CBS is regime media at this point. So they are being fed this by Trump, by Trump's regime, by the people who are orchestrating these war crimes that are imminent. Donald Trump and Netanyahu met earlier this week. Netanyahu led the briefing, and then Netanyahu met with Rubio. Netanyahu met with Hegseth, where they planned Netanyahu's strategy right here. War crimes across Iran, Israel, and the United States side by side for these war crimes. Netanyahu briefed Donald Trump on what the options were, told Donald Trump what needed to be done, and Donald Trump submitted to Netanyahu, agreeing to this plan of horrific war crimes. By the way, this is state regime media CBS saying that Netanyahu briefed Donald Trump right there. This is being described as one of the harshest bomb campaigns in American history and in the history of the world. Trump wants it to conclude by the time the financial markets open, and he believes that he will be able to obliterate all of Iran, that they will submit, and this will make them want to negotiate and do a deal. Folks, it's going to have the exact opposite impact. It's not going to make Iran want to make a deal. Iran will engage in a massive retaliation, which they are preparing for right now, and we should expect, frankly, the worst of the worst that's about to take place.
So there you have it. That's about what's to take place. The Most High is speeding things up for the elect's sake, right? We've been sighing and crying for the abominations of this place. And here we go, because they know that Iran's going to hit back hard. You know, and I talked about a Cobra Kai type of strategy that Iran adapted earlier this week. Strike first and strike hard, you know, when they went against the targets in Jordan, you know, which is where they were planning massive. And there's even more that Iran has taken out. You know, you're not getting everything about what Iran has been going after. But they're going after Mossad centers. They're going after all military planning and all that. They're blowing it up, saying, we know what your plan is before you even fucking do it. You know, they're not waiting for you to fucking do it anymore. They got the strike first and strike hard strategy. So that's a totally different strategy. You know, most people are thinking that Iran was just going to stick with the, oh, okay, you attack me, now I'm going to attack you. But now they are going after the sources. You know, hell is being unleashed. U.S. withdrawals troops, Patriot batteries from northern Iraq amid Iranian attacks. New reports on Friday of more U.S. troop pullback initiatives in the wave of last couple weeks of U.S.-Iran fighting. Iranian ballistic missile and drone strikes have targeted American terrorists increased regularly, especially in Jordan and Kuwait. One regional media publication freshly reports the U.S. military has started to draw down its last remaining forces from Iraq, stationed in the vicinity of Erbil's airport. So there you go. This is part of the main reason why they're attacking Iraq again. Because like everything else, so the U.S. is being driven out of there, so they're going to try to destroy Iraq again. In the Iraqi Kurdistan region, well-placed sources with close knowledge of the process confirmed AI monitor. So like everything else, so the U.S. is withdrawing from Iraq. They've been wanting them out of Iraq for the longest, and it looks like Iran's the one chasing them off. Houthis consider imposing fees for Red Sea passage. So like everything else, so you know, they want a toll as well. The group imposed maritime embargo against Saudi Arabia as of the 20th of July. Yemen's Houthis could be looking to impose fees on maritime traffic coming through the Bab el-Mandab gateway, Reuters news agency reported on Wednesday, citing regional sources. Saudi Arabia utilized Bab el-Mandab as an alternative to the Strait of Hormuz, which Iran blocked for the U.S. allied vessels since March, since the launch of the U.S.-Israeli war against Iran on the 20th of February. While no timeline has been set yet for imposing fees, it would ramp up pressure against Trump administration to wind down its war on Iran. So like everything else, though, you know, Saudi Arabia, well, they're planning to invade. Al-Houthi says there are indications Saudi Arabia is planning major escalation against Yemen Yeah, they're planning a ground invasion against Yemen, so we're going to be hearing about that within the next week or two. You know, so here it comes again. Leader of Yemen's al-Zarrallah, commonly known as the Houthis, said on Thursday there were indications that Saudi Arabia was planning major escalation against Yemen, as the war between the two sides had been reignited following the 13th of July Saudi strikes against Sana'a International Airport. Guardian also reported on Thursday, citing Yemeni forces, that Saudi Arabia was preparing for a major escalation against Ansarallah by sea and possibly launching ground offensive in central Yemen. So, there it is. Saudi Arabia is looking to launch new Red Sea coalition to keep the Bab al-Mandab Strait open, and the Saudi Defense Ministry announced that 14 countries backed the effort. This full coalition hasn't been released, but according to Saudi officials in Jordan, Ansarallah imposed a blockade against Saudi protests following the Saudi strikes on the Sana'a airport, which were meant to prevent the landing of a plane that took off from Iran, which was carrying members of Yemeni delegation that attended for the funeral of Ayatollah Khamenei. So like everything else, though, Saudi Arabia fired upon a vessel there, and that's what reignited this war. So as you can see, at least the flock is drawing everybody into this war. So I'm going to get, you know, that scripture here. Just give me a minute. So you've been hearing a lot about the Red Sea as of late, as to the escalation and how many are drawn into this war. You know, the Saudi coalition, the U.S. coalition with Saudi Arabia, all the Gulf states at this war, right? Jeremiah chapter 49 verse 20, therefore hear the plan of the Most High, Yahweh, that he has devised against Edom, and hear what he has purposed against the inhabitants of Teman. You know, another place for Esau, Edom, the high place, which is Babylon the Great, America. Surely they will be dragged away, even the little ones of the flock. Surely he will make their dwelling place desolate because of them. So that's talking about the small hats that run Babylon, especially with the NDAA. The earth has quaked at the noise of their downfall. There's an outcry. The sound of its noise has been heard at the Red Sea. And that's when they ultimately become demolished. And Iran, as well as its allies, have been demolishing the U.S. terrorists. But it's going to get a lot worse once there's ground invasions. They're just getting their weapons ready. You know, they're getting their troops ready to try to come in. He will mount up and fly like an eagle and spread his wings over against the city of Basra, aka Babylon the Great. And in that day, the heart of the mighty warriors of Edom will be like the heart of a woman in childbirth. You know, and that's ultimately by its destruction that's going to happen. You know, and this third world war is coming quickly. And like everything else, though, with the NDAA Act and IDF coming in, they're going to enforce the MOTB. They're going to mandate that everybody has it here in Babylon. That's what's coming. And America is going to look like Gaza. The rest of it, those that don't go along, don't get in those smart cities. You know, those that do make it get in the smart cities to be tracked for their every move. There's a lot of people that won't be compliant. Like to show you in the movie Demolition Man. You know, you live the Coctos way, which is another way of saying the Zionist way, the Israeli state, right? Coctos. Or you live down here and you starve to death. Well, they're going to use famine and shortages and all that to get everybody to capitulate, causing all of those small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, to receive a mark. And simply you'll be cut off, or you'll be hunted down, gunned down in the streets of Babylon. Because IDF has taken over. So, hopefully this has all been edifying. Jacob's trouble? Well, that's right around the corner, and it's going to intensify. Shalom, Brakat the Yahweh, Brakat the Yahweh Shai, Ba'ashem Rakakadash, Wa Abba Babal. Brakatum, Jehovah elect, Shalom.